So today, we're going to break down a story coming out of Shillong, the capital of Meghalaya. On the surface, it's about a water shortage, but if you look just a little bit closer, it becomes this incredible case study in political theater, in bureaucratic absurdity, and the whole thing really kicks off with one simple, totally illogical question.
Right? This is the question that's at the very heart of this whole mess. It points to a contradiction that's so obvious, it just makes you stop and ask, what is really going on here? This isn't just a story about a broken pipe, it's a story about a broken process.
Okay, so to really get just how bizarre this is, you have to see the sequence of events for yourself. I mean, the timeline, it just defies all logic.
Get this. On December 8th, the chief minister himself holds this big meeting to tackle the city's water crisis. The next day, you see the official photos drop, projecting action, projecting concern. And then, less than 48 hours later, the Public Health Engineering Department, the PHE, turns off the water for the entire city for 4 straight days. How does a meeting to solve a crisis immediately lead to that same crisis getting so much worse? It just doesn't make sense.
And look, we're not talking about some minor inconvenience here. This decision had a massive, very real, and very painful impact on the people living in Shillong.
We're talking about over 400,000 people. Just think about that for a second. The entire population of a capital city suddenly left without one of the most basic necessities of life.
And this wasn't just for a couple of hours. No, we're talking 4 full, consecutive days. That's long enough to throw every single part of your daily life into complete chaos.
So what do? Well, for those who could actually afford it, the only option was to call a private water tanker. And of course, the prices shot up to as much as 800 rupees. Instantly, access to water wasn't a human right anymore. It was something you had to be wealthy enough to buy.
And you can just imagine the ripple effects, right? I mean, think about it. Hospitals trying to manage patient care without a reliable water supply. Students who are in the middle of exams. Businesses like restaurants and hotels completely crippled. And then just every single household just scrambling to do the basics, to cook, to clean, to just live.
So, the big question is, why? Why did this all happen? Well, the official explanation was pretty simple, but the reality? Oh, that's a whole different story. To get it, we have to look at the deep systemic problems that have been building up for years.
There is just this huge gap between the official language and what's really happening on the ground. The government uses these vague phrases like essential maintenance or technical glitches. But the real story is one of decades of structural failure, of natural water sources literally drying up, and of crucial infrastructure projects being delayed for year after year.
The numbers themselves paint a really clear picture. The city officially needs almost 56 million liters of water every single day. The problem is, the current supply doesn't even come close. And this deficit, this gap, means that 30 to 40% of households already depend on those expensive private tankers, even on a good day.
And the problem is being hit from 2 sides at once. First, you've got the core infrastructure that's failing. A state study found that nearly 800 of its water sources are in critical condition. At the exact same time, you've got climate change piling on. A projected 50% rainfall deficiency is basically starving the system of new water. It's a perfect storm of neglect meeting nature. And if you want the perfect example of this in action, here it is. This huge project, Phase 3 of the Greater Shillong Water Supply Scheme, was supposed to be the long-term fix. It was meant to solve these problems, and after years and years of talk, it is still stuck in the planning stage.
So this is where we get to the real heart of it. That meeting back on December 8th, it wasn't a fluke, it wasn't an anomaly, it was actually part of a very predictable and ultimately very empty pattern.
We're calling it the review meeting ritual. It's a performance. It's a piece of political theater. It's designed to look like governing, to make the public feel like something is being done, when in reality the outcome is usually, well, nothing.
And it follows a very clear script, almost like a 5-act play. Act 1, a crisis gets bad enough that the public starts complaining loudly. Act 2, a big, high-level meeting is announced. Act 3, the meeting happens and you get all the photos of officials looking very serious and concerned. Act 4, a press release goes out promising swift, decisive action. And then Act 5, as we saw in Shillong, the situation either stays exactly the same or somehow it gets even worse.
And this really is the key takeaway. These meetings have become rituals that are all about expressing concern. They are not tools for creating accountability or for making actual change. They are the appearance of action, not action itself.
So,
If we know the official process is just a ritual, it forces us to start asking a whole different set of questions. The kind of questions that go way beyond the official press releases.
Let's start with a really practical one. Why on earth would you schedule a massive water shutdown for the whole city during the driest part of the year? Wouldn't it make just a little more sense to do that during the monsoon when there's actually water around? It points to a shocking lack of basic planning.
And that leads to the even bigger question. If the highest levels of government can get together to review a crisis and then seem totally powerless to stop that crisis from exploding 2 days later, then what is the actual point of these meetings? What do they really achieve?
Which really makes you wonder about something more fundamental. Are we watching the act of governing here, or are we just watching a government go through the motions to reassure itself that it's on the job, even as the city's taps are running dry?
And that's the final question that we're left with. If these rituals of concern are failing the people of Shillong so completely, then what is it going to take to actually fix the problem? What does real action and real accountability truly look like?